5. Welcome, everybody, to the Weekly Grind Podcast. I am your host, Keith Fabbri, with my co-host tonight, Carrie Cameron, joining us tonight, and Doctortoddlee. Guys, how we doing?
Fantastic.
Very, very good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. It is Wednesday night. It's about 8 o'clock in the evening. We're recording the episode, and guys, we had... Carrie, you weren't with us for the first one because you had a conflict, but Todd and I went ahead and did it without you. We had our first podcast last week. And I think everything went pretty well. I got some good reviews, some good feedback from guys and girls alike that sent me messages or emails or just comments on Facebook on the actual posts and stuff for the link for the show. Guys, how did you guys get anything like the same thing going on, or did you get any negative feedback?
Yeah, I got some really nice feedback from some of the bodybuilders we mentioned. Like Dominic appreciated it, what we said. French, and of course David Reed. That was, I got a bunch of generalized positive feedback too. That one of the things that threw me was that we came across as professional, and I was like, but Carrie wasn't there. It was like Carrie is the one that's down to earth that grounds us,
right?
The voice of reason. It was like,
that's a scary thought.
I got a lot of the same. I got a lot of good feedback from Dominic reached out to me as well, as so did Dave Reed. We had a nice conversation, Dave and I, afterwards. Everybody that I talked to really enjoyed the first episode. They found it very entertaining, which was the best part, because I had people telling me that they normally don't like podcasts because how boring they are. They said, you guys kept me entertained the whole way through. Yeah, I got that thing too, where they said we sound professional, which that threw me off a little bit too, because it's the first one we've done, but apparently we sounded professional, so I guess that's good. Carrie, did you get any comments from anybody knowing that you're involved? Did they talk to you about it at all?
Not directly, just what I saw from obviously the posts and things like that. And I got a chance to listen to it just to feel it out. And, it was, for a first run, it was good. It was really smooth, had good quality sound. And then I think my favorite comment was about your seductive voice, Keith. So that was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I don't know all about that, but that was kind of weird too. But I this is a year in the making, guys. We talked about doing this a year ago. We finally got it off the ground and stuff. I couldn't have been happier with the way the first episode went. So it's really nice to hear that everybody that listened to it, all 7 people enjoyed it, and that here we are doing a second one because the first one went okay. It wasn't a crash and burn failure.
And that's what we always hope for, is not complete failure.
Right. There's one more bit of news that I wanted to touch on that we didn't touch on, Todd, the last time. We got Carrie here now, so we could probably touch on it a little bit better and get a little more perspective on it, is the letter that came down from the IFBB International to the NPC and to the IFBB Pro League over the weekend of the Olympia, trying to, how they figured they had any right to do this, I don't know, suspend the NPC officials from any further competition that they could do, or IFBB professional officials from any competitions and stuff. This was, from my understanding, was they showed up at the Olympia for the Olympia Amateur competition, which was, it does have some different divisions, some international divisions that we don't have here, but it was an NPC show. And Jim Mannion told them basically, we've got it handled. We don't need you. And apparently they were a little butthurt about it and went off and did that suspension letter. So what it's come down to, for what it looks like, is that the NPC is still going to be the same here in the United States as it was before, but the IFBB International will be no longer, and will have really nothing to do with the IFBB Pro League. Is that what you guys gathered out of it?
I don't know. When I read the letter, it was kind of confusing, because at the beginning it said, we will continue to recognize NPC pro qualifying events such as Junior Nationals, Junior USA, Universe, North American, which is an IFBB show, I don't know why it's on the list, USA, and Nationals. And then it went on to contradict itself, saying there's no association between the NPC and the IFBB anymore. It made no sense at all to me. It basically said, like, yeah, you should all still enter NPC shows because you can still win IFBB Pro cards, but we don't want to have anything to do officially with the NPC.
Right. I think what they were talking was the IFBB International, because the two work in conjunction, even though they're separate entities. The two work in conjunction as amateur feeders for the IFBB Pro League. The IFBB Pro League is a organization all to itself that has nothing to do with the international, other than the fact that it's a amateur feeder organization for the Pro League. So I think that they were saying they have nothing to do with the IFBB International anymore, but they're still going to utilize the NPC. From my understanding, and this is came from some of the other judges that I saw online posting about it, nothing changes here in the United States. Everything's going to still be the same with the NPC. For what it sounds like is that the NPC may actually be expanding to an international organization.
What I'm hearing you're saying then is basically they're disbanding the IFBB amateur and making NPC universally the amateur league, so that all ways into the IFBB Pro is through the NPC. Even if you're in Europe, there's NPC Europe, is what you're saying eventually.
That's the sound of it, is what they're wanting to expand the NPC now and get rid of the other organization, which has been kind of a pain in the ass for about the last 10 years.
Okay. I mean, that's weird that they would smack the NPC down with one letter and then eradicate their own amateur limb, which would be their revenue source.
Right.
And then open the doors to international revenue to the NPC in that regard.
Yeah, it's been kind of a from what I understand, just with some of these other divisions at the IFBB International the last couple of years, I know there was a changing in the way that they do some of their posing and such, and they wanted the NPC and the IFBB Pro League to go to the same thing, and they said, no, we're not going to, basically. So it's been kind of a battle back and forth between the two of them for the last couple of years, and I think they just finally, with this whole thing at the Amateur Olympia, where basically they said, you guys don't know how to judge these contests and stuff properly. They just basically said, take a hike. And that's where this all came from.
I'm back now, by the way.
I see we lost you for a second. You're back now.
Yes. I know there was also a lot of divisions that the IFBB wanted to add in at the amateur level to try to get more diversity,
right,
involved in it. And that's a big factor in what was the divide. I think was probably the biggest part, was that it's already watered down enough with
right
all the divisions that have been added in. And I know you guys have competed as well, and some of these national shows take, you're there all day to get through one or two divisions. There's so many people. What happens if you add in 2, 3, or 4 other divisions like wellness and health and stuff like
There's
that?
There's a wellness division.
There's a wellness division in the IFBB International. There's a couple other weird ones.
Like if you lose 300 pounds, then
yes,
you're in the wellness division?
Yes.
Essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah, there's another one that's like the bad body.
That's like paying your taxes division, or like cleaning the table when you're done eating division.
Yeah, you're talking about now already having 3 and 4 day national competitions. If we add all these other divisions, they're going to be 5, and it's going to be a week-long event. And it's already a week-long event with weigh-ins.
Getting healthier, like that doesn't. I'm an IFBB pro because I lost the excess body fat I put on that I shouldn't have. And
well, they don't give out pro cards for that one. That doesn't have.
Good. Thank fucking God. All right.
That's just a division. It's an amateur division that's available, but they don't actually give out a pro card for that shit.
That's too cool because you never know anymore.
I know. They give a pro card out for everything.
In the top squatting division, the squat will be done division.
Right.
You know how it is nowadays. Everybody has to have a place. Everybody has to have some way to participate. I mean,
right.
Bodybuilding can't just be about people that want to build muscle. I mean, God
forbid. And that's what's so fucking retarded about it. It's like if we went to baseball and we're like, well, I don't have any arms. Why don't you have a baseball league for me? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Get out of here. But in our sport, It's like, well, I had a crippling motorcycle accident because I was driving on coke and alcohol. And it's like, but I don't have two legs. I should be allowed to win the bodybuilding show. It's like, well, we'll take your money. Sure. What the fuck? Here, we'll make a division for you. It's like everybody else like holds it together with the dignity shit. This is just hoard out so extreme at this point.
Well,
Yeah.
when did bodybuilding come about health?
Yeah, it's never been about health.
I lost that memo somewhere.
Yeah. The last time I checked, my any peak week ever was never about fucking health. It's probably one of the most unhealthy things you can possibly do. So
I remember distinctly in 2012 Nationals in Atlanta, Georgia. I was trying to lose weight in the sauna. I managed to lose, I think, 12 pounds in 8 hours. I was like in a sauna, and somebody turned it up to 200 degrees. I was in like a garbage bag and two double-layered sweatsuits, like a melting Sith Lord. And like if Rick Moranis was a witch and they dunked him in water or something from Spaceball. And it's like I like stumbled out of the sauna, out of the gym, and like laid myself down on an Atlanta park bench in November, and I'm smoking. I can see fucking smoke coming off of me, and there's all these people walking past me, staring at me like angrily, like how dare you die on this park bench? You dog shit.
Take your hobo ass somewhere else and die.
Right. Because I was painted by this point too. So it's like if Hancock just got back from the surface of the sun and was taking up a whole park bench, and it's just like melting through the park bench. And I was like, yeah, I'm like fucking dying here. No one's gonna call for help or nothing.
Nope.
I was like, and the irony is, I'm not planning on winning the national bodybuilding championship in like 2-3 hours or some shit, or like tomorrow. It's like the most ridiculous shit.
Right.
Oh yeah, but it's about health and wellness now. So
that's right.
Remember that.
Frontline health. I'll tell you, every time I've gotten Trent cough, I certainly don't feel healthy.
No, not at all.
Every call you get, you get the call like, "Hey, dude, is Trent cough real? Because I felt like I was going to die on my bathroom floor." And you're like, "Yeah, Trent cough's real.
That's real.
That's why you heard of it. It's a thing."
Yeah.
It's like people don't just make up things like that. It's not called unicorn cough. It's...
Nope.
That's in the wellness division.
I like to call it tranxiety myself.
You take in the wellness division. It's like I did 6 tons of DNP to bake this wellness trophy.
But you're healthy.
That's right.
Yeah. It's like, let me get this straight. You don't use steroids because they're bad for you, but you use DNP, Clen, and T3.
All at the same time.
You don't smell badass.
That's a hell of a cocktail. Guaranteed to lose 150 pounds or your money back.
Well, you'll melt off the inside.
Pretty much, yeah, because you're putting toxins in your body from the DNP, and then you're speeding up your thyroid with the T3, and then we're just going to make sure that we get a beta agonist in there to stimulate our adrenal gland just enough to get the rest of it off.
Let's do the bucket brigade. Okay, so the Clen at the beta-2 receptor liberates the fat from the adipocytes. Then the T3 upregulates mitochondrial functioning. Then L-carnitine transports it to the mitochondria. DNP punches holes in the side of the mitochondria, so you lose proton, therefore permanently getting lower efficiency on fat oxidation. Now, if you ever drop below 3,000 calories for the rest of your life, your fucking ass dies.
Right.
Enjoy.
Have fun.
And you just summed up prep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. We just forgot the trend and the screaming and the fact that you have to sleep on the couch every night.
I think I know a coach that actually that's their protocol.
Does he look like a bug?
Anyway, so we're gonna move on to the topic for today, the main topic, which was insulin sensitivity and resistance. Really a topic that I think gets overlooked in the off season just as much as it does during contest prep, and is probably one of the number one reasons why people do not get as lean as they possibly can get during a contest prep because they don't understand their body's insulin resistance and sensitivity, and when it's time to add and when it's time to subtract carbs. So, Todd, I'm going to let you start with this one since you're the smartest one out of the three of us when it comes to this shit, and we'll just kind of add our own stuff onto it.
Okay. When it comes to this shit, I will agree. Comes to social skills, I would say I've alienated half the audience already. So they're like,
They've already, yeah, they left this first time you opened up your mouth. We're done. There's one soul out there, one lonely soul out there that's going to learn about insulin resistance.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's my screening mechanism for like my rocket ship that goes to the moon of all the healthiest people. Because I'm a dick. All right. Basically, simple way of putting it. So you got multiple like bank accounts, right?
Yep.
Then you've got the muscle storage bank account where glycogen gets stored. You've got the glycerol backbone and triglyceride that forms fat droplets that get stored in the adipocytes or fat cells bank account. You've got the liver glycogen bank account. And then you've got a checking account where it's like not diverted to one of the savings accounts yet. All right. So as you introduce carbohydrates, we're going to pretend carbs are money. And once it hits your electronic database, it's going to be in the form of glucose or blood sugar.
Right.
So you've got blood sugar, no matter what the fuck you ate. If it's a carbohydrate, it turns into blood sugar or fructose. All right. Fructose is a special type of currency like Bitcoins, and we'll get to that in a minute. So
Bitcoins.
The economics of getting fat. No, so you basically have glucose in the normal bloodstream, and the pancreas identifies the glucose level with a GLUT2 transporter. GLUT because it's glucose, T for transport, so GLUT, glucose transporter, GLUT2 because it's the second transporter.
Right.
It's on the pancreas, and it basically sucks it up in a small amount, identifies how much blood sugar you got, and as the number goes from like 50 to 120, it starts pumping out more insulin from the beta cells of the pancreas. Now, that insulin binds to insulin receptors located on the adipocytes or the muscle cells, which are our savings accounts because we want to store it. Basically, the body's like, fuck, the blood sugar's high. We're going to take nerve damage.
Right.
So it's going to shunt that shit. Preferably, if you're insulin sensitive in the muscle cells, all the glucose goes to the muscle glycogen synthesis. After the liver glycogen synthesis is filled, you store about 100 grams of glycogen in the liver. Then everything else goes to the muscles until you hit about 300 or 400. This isn't a normal, sedentary, sickly American that goes to the doctor and gets their blood test done. And that's where doctors get their confabulated pools of normal values. Remember, the normal blood work is for a normal American, which is basically Cinnabon, chain-smoking Marlboros, and drinking Jack Daniels, sitting on their ass doing nothing.
It's not for a bodybuilder.
Like, yeah, if you're like have normal blood values, you're probably sick as fuck. So you're nothing like the population of the stellar individuals that would listen to this podcast. So when you get guys like Keith that are just a walking slab of muscle, probably have like 200 pounds of muscle, but for a normal American, it's like 30. So that's why they say 300 grams of glycogen. Someone like Keith might store 1,000 or 1,500 grams of glycogen, but you don't know. And everyone overestimates and spills over, but that's another conversation entirely.
Well, we're going to have that conversation later, too, because I'm going to go over using blood sugar levels of the glucometer to track it in the off-season.
Hands. Anyway, so we're going to get the blood sugar is going to go, assuming you have a low insulin state and insulin sensitive muscles, the glucose will go to the muscle cells. Now, as your insulin sensitivity goes down, either because the muscle cells are getting full or because your body fat's over 15%, or your diet's high in high glycemic index carbs, like man-made foods, the simplest way to put it. Like if it comes in a bag, a box, or a can, don't fucking eat it.
Right.
So then it goes towards fat cells. So if somebody's chugging down gummy bears and like liquid carbs post-workout, and they're already 15% body fat, and they're shooting themselves up with insulin, a large amount of that's going to go towards the adipocytes, not towards the muscle cells.
Right.
Although there is a direct anabolic effect of the insulin binding to the insulin-like growth factor receptors after you've filled up all the insulin receptors on the muscle cells. There's a cross binding where there's similarity between the ligands and the receptors, kind of like aldosterone and testosterone, why you get water retention from using gear. So when I said that earlier, fructose is kind of like Bitcoins, fructose is great for going into that liver glycogen account. It's good for synthesizing liver glycogen. It's not great for going into the muscle or the fat storage accounts. Right. It will go eventually to the fat storage account after the liver's full and it can't go to the muscle and it can't chill in the bloodstream because the insulin's too high.
Right.
So optimal method for growing muscle would have a really low insulin sensitivity from having a really low body fat percentage, having all the proper insulin sensitizing stuff like cinnamon, RALA, vandel sulfate, chromium. Although don't just go out and buy that shit and take it in a huge dose and knock your ass out while you're driving. Like you want to like titrate that stuff up slowly because chances are you might be really insulin sensitive.
Right.
You know, and you take a little bit of a glucose disposal agent, not an insulin mimicker, and drive the carbs without insulin into the muscle cell. So you could probably get away with 30 carbs mid-workout and 30 carbs post-workout. And that's a scientifically proven amount to be optimal is like 28 grams of hydrolyzed whey and 33 grams of dextrose post-workout is the most muscle synthesis cascade you're going to get from the leucine mTOR pathway and the insulin AKT pathway. Additional amounts on the tested individuals did not show any increase in muscle synthesis. Now, mind you, these individuals' max bench press is probably like 150 pounds, and they're probably like a 23 body mass index, and they probably have 20 pounds of muscle on them. Right. You know, that doesn't mean that Joe Schmo, I'm a heavyweight bodybuilder and I've gotten third at nationals for 3 years, couldn't get away with more protein and carbs post-workout.
Right.
It's just saying that for the average listener, start small.
Right.
And use maybe 1 scoop of this and 1 scoop of that and work it up to a 1.5 and a 1.5 and check your body fat percentage and don't lie to yourself. You know what? If your nipples start pointing down, you're gaining fat. There's no way around it. You know, stuff like that. Now, I can get way more technical than that, but I figure you guys probably want to chime in at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main problem I see with people is that they need to understand is that if you're slamming 600, 700, 800 grams of carbs a day for a long period of time, chances are you're starting to become insulin resistant because you are just slamming too much. And people don't understand is how do you check that? Now you can check it with a glucometer. We can get into that later. But the other way to check it is if you start losing your pumps with a high amount of carbs, chances are that you're not shuttling those carbohydrates into the muscle cells where they belong, and you're starting to become insulin resistant. Your sensitivity is down. You are not necessarily maximizing the carbohydrates that you're intaking.
Let me chime in with that because I can back that up. Today, I rolled out of bed and did a pump delt workout, my Loki delts workout from T4R, and I didn't take my normal 3 or 4 units of Humalog. Humalog is a short-acting insulin with my carbs. I forgot it at home. I didn't take IGF-1 DES mid-workout. I basically just used my normal pre-workout 20 D-ball, and I had 2 Greek yogurts that were 15 grams of carbs, 15 grams of protein each for breakfast, and then I had 1 cup of Crispix cereal. So I had maybe 55 carbs, 30 grams of protein an hour before I lifted, had my Fenris Fury pre-workout. Mid-workout, I had 10 grams of branched chains, 5 grams of glutamine, and 30 grams of dextrose, which I won't need anymore because Battle Mead was released today. But the point I'm getting at is I didn't inject insulin, and I got the exact fucking phenomenal pump to the point where I was almost in tears that I would had I used a bunch of other shit. Meaning that if it's first thing in the morning and you're used to using low doses of stuff, you will stay insulin sensitive, even though I've put on like 20 pounds in the past 4 or 5 weeks.
Right. And it should be to a point where you should have more sensitivity in the morning because your body should be, waking up with a fasted blood glucose levels. That would be the optimal time for something like that. Whereas you get later in the day and you've been eating carbohydrates all day long, and if you've been going overboard for a long time, that you might lose those pumps. That's what I was saying. And that, if you're not getting a pump anymore in the gym and you're eating 800 grams of fucking carbs a day, you might want to lower the carbs back down because your body has become resistant to them. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and remember, like, there's a double-edged sword with fat. If you add fat to a meal that has carbs, you lower the glycemic index.
Yes.
So you're going to lower the insulin response.
Yep.
But 100% of the fat you consume with the carbs will be stored as fat.
Yes. Yes, it will.
That's something a lot of people don't understand. They don't even understand that there's fat with carbs. That they have like cookies, and they think cookies are carbs. Carbs make me fat. And it's like, bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? You made those cookies.
Those are made with Crisco.
Doesn't count if you don't use butter.
Well, this is true.
Well, I use coconut oil.
Yeah.
You get every fucking excuse.
Because it's healthy fat and it's good for me. You're not like that.
Fats don't change. Yeah,
it's still fat. It doesn't make a difference. It's still fat.
Right. Fat's fat regardless. But
right.
I think a lot of it goes back to the point you both have made about people just overshoot what their bodies need. They sit there and they need 20,000 calories and 10,000 of those calories are coming from carbs. You don't need that. It's just too much. And you go backwards, and then, I think people need to evaluate their gym sessions because that's going to tell you the answer to everything.
Right.
If your sessions suck, more carbs isn't the answer.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times less carbs, you get to a point where, you're having problems in the gym and you're lethargic and stuff. A lot of times it's because you've consumed too many carbs. Carbs are a relaxant. They're going to relax your body. They're going to make you lethargic in high doses. I mean, to be quite honest and stuff, my best workouts are when I don't consume any carbohydrates with my pre-workout meal. So like if I go in and I have a few carbs throughout the day and then I train on just protein and vegetable, or maybe protein, a little bit of fat, and I don't even need any I don't take any pre-workouts or anything. I just fucking go in. If I'm that tired, I just have a cup of coffee. But get in there and train, and a lot of times I'll have intra-workout carbohydrates because I want to replenish glycogen as I'm going. But I really don't consume any kind of pre-workout carbs because I found out that my training sucks. I'm more tired. I'm more lethargic. I don't pop through my workout like I should. I'm not very efficient in getting through it. And a lot of people don't understand that. They want to sit there and, I need these carbs. I need these carbs. You really don't need those carbs. Not then.
No.
You just don't. You just don't need them. There's no reason to go eat 100 grams of fucking carbs pre-workout.
No, some of my best training sessions have been during, ketosis.
Right.
High fats. And I've noticed I've gotten some crazy pumps.
Yep.
So carbs have a place, but once again, that's where the nutritional timing comes in with. It pays to have some knowledge rather than just think you eat carbs and protein all day. You'll grow and you'll get good pumps and you'll look like, a pro.
Right. And you, like you said,
have people do like a carb backloading because, like Keith said, that the science is you will train harder and better and still get pumps in a carb-free state. Although a lot of people whine like, I can't go heavy if I don't have carb in me. But I've done it. Like I've been like 3 days out and, pretty much benching the same as I normally would.
Right.
And, my training partner was a badass motherfucker. It's like, I cannot believe you rep out 225 on an incline for 12 reps at 160 3 days out from a show on no carbs. And this is a hard person to impress. It's like, I don't know how the fuck I just did that. I would never believe I'd be able to do that on no carbs.
Right.
But you're that much stronger than me. I'm not going to go out like a bitch in front of you. It's just like, fuck what if I
and had you been eating
like a bitch in the gym either.
Had you been eating carbs,
like,
you probably would have taken a nap on the bench.
You just eat the carbs post-workout in the anabolic window,
right?
And you absorb that shit, and it's there for you tomorrow. It doesn't just go away. Once it's in the muscle, it's there. It's in your savings account, not your checking account. Once your checking account goes to zero, it doesn't just draw from your savings account of muscle. Ideally, it draws from your liver or your adipocyte savings accounts.
Right.
Which is the point of the Clen and the T3 and all the other things, GH, is it all shifts the balance you're pulling from the adipocyte savings account once your pool of checking account goes to zero.
Yep.
You don't overdraw into your muscle glycogen.
Right.
But T3 does overdraw into muscle glycogen. That's why you got to be careful with T3.
Yeah, it's very non-selective.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, it's a mindset. You know,
Right.
everything's carbs are your power, they're your energy, they're your fuel source, which to a point they are, but at the same time, they're a sedative. You know,
souls work better.
Yeah,
you need enough
Just
carbohydrates to
work out
keep
the souls of
the
the-
muscle full. That's what you need. You need enough carbohydrates to keep the muscle full and to shuttle amino acids into the muscle during your anabolic window. That's what you need the carbohydrates for.
Perfect wording. Agreed.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
there's no reason for somebody Todd's size at 165 pounds on stage that you're coming in, a couple weeks out and you're having a high day of carbohydrates at 1,200 grams of carbs. There's just no fucking reason for it.
Never done it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking, but I see it though. I see these guys go and they go 3 days, no carbs, and they're like, oh, I need a fucking refeed. And their refeed day, cheat day, whatever, is just eating a bunch of garbage carbs and fats all day long. And the next thing you know, they got 1,000 grams down and they're wondering why they're a bloated fucking mess 2 days later. Well, it's because you just completely filled your glycogen stores and refilled the fat stores that you just tried to lean out.
It's like
Congratulations,
Coach
you
Bikini
completely
thing to do.
counterproductive. You were completely counterproductive.
yes.
Just emotional decision making is the key to failure.
And you do need to understand too how big you are and how many carbs you actually need. And there's some trial and error that goes along that in most cases. I mean, I can say that my last contest prep, I was flat on 300 grams. But
if you're depleted enough, that makes a difference.
Right. I was flat. I was depleted on 300 grams, but I didn't need to up that to 500. There was no reason. I was flat. I was achieving what I needed. I still had the carbohydrate stores and the glycogen stores enough to be able to train. There was no reason to do 1,000-gram refeeds every 3 days. It would have been counterproductive. But I think a lot of people don't understand is that there's a point of diminishing returns. Yeah, you can add carbohydrates and you can fill up, but then there becomes a point where you just keep filling up and then you spill over, and then where are you left?
Well, sometimes less more. And I think people, it comes down to just finding that balance and then using all your nutrients and not just focusing on carbohydrates, because a lot of people do. And they take that mentality and they go no carb or low carb, all prep, way too low, and then in the off season they take the exact opposite route and they take in 3 times more than they need,
right?
And they just kill themselves all around. It's a lot of it just comes down to needing time to learn your body, and I think that's one thing you just don't see enough of anymore.
Well, and it's subtle change. It's not these huge dramatic changes of me going no carb for 12 weeks straight, where basically I'm doing no carb in one refeed day, and then I severely shrink up my glycogen capacity of my muscles going into the show. So then I think I need to fill up because I'm so flat. Well, you're only going to be able to fill up so far because you've diminished your glycogen capacity to the point where 200 grams and you're as full as you're going to get, and you're still going to look small and stringy.
Yes.
Instead of leaving those carbohydrates in there and giving yourself enough to where you fill up, and then bringing it back and pulling it back enough to to cause that metabolic shift and cause that the fat burning, and then kind of raise them back up again and cycling them properly into the show and just having those subtle little changes. And then it goes into the off season instead of having a subtle change where, you know, I don't want to say reverse dieting because there's a lot of people that just love reverse dieting, and I think it's fucking stupid to like limit yourself. I think you should give yourself what your body actually needs. But what these people do, they don't listen to their body. They'll just go out and they'll eat everything in sight for 2 weeks straight, and next thing you know, they're 60 pounds heavier, and it's like, oh fuck, and oh wait a minute, I just put on a bunch of body fat, and I just ruined everything that I worked for the last 16 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, like, that's where your health risks come.
Right, right, and their blood pressure's through the roof, and their feet are swollen up, and they can't get out of bed, and they feel like death all day long, and their lower back hurts to the point where, you know, because they've got so much sodium going on in the kidneys, or they end up with a kidney infection because, you know. Yeah. So I just think it's
a lot of that has to do with ghrelin overload with the estrogen, making them like out of their mind, craving shitty food,
right? Because
they go back on regular test after they went off test, and then they dropped all the cutting shit. So they dropped their metabolism down to a quarter of what it was before. Then they take something, they drop all their anti-estrogens. Their estrogen goes through the roof. Then their estrogen works with their ghrelin and then they get sugar addicted instantly. Yep. People don't realize that. Yeah. It's like if you quit crack in 1984 and you start smoking crack again, you have this same habit immediately you did in 1984. It's not like you start over with like one push every 2 days. Like you're smoking, you're stabbing people for rocks in no time. You know, it's the same thing with the sugar. It's like they don't just have like the like it size at Cold Stone. They have the love it. Then they beat up kids outside and take their ice cream. Right. It's just a total nightmare overload. Yeah. And like you said, it's going to cause congestive heart failure and kidney failure. Yep. And that because they're not dead, they don't realize they have congestive heart failure and kidney failure. Yep. But kidney failure just means the insufficiency of the kidney to excrete enough sodium to clear enough water to not drive up your blood pressure so high and your intra-fluid so high that you get congestive heart failure. And then a heart failure is just when your heart can no longer supply oxygen to the tissues it needs to for you to have normal functioning. Right. Of the tissues.
Well, let's move on a little bit here. I know this is a technique I actually learned from Justin Harris. We're gonna have Justin on here in a few weeks to talk about carb cycling, and I'm sure he'll touch on this as well. But this is using a glucometer to basically tell what your blood sugar levels are, and to tell if you're utilizing the carbohydrates that you're taking in. So you get up in the morning, and we take a resting, fasted blood sugar draw to get your blood glucose levels. They should be normal range, 70 to 99 nanograms per milliliter of blood. That would be for a normal fasted blood glucose level on a normal person. Anything below 70 to 99 nanograms per milliliter.
Right. Okay, that's the same thing that the hospitals use.
Right.
Okay.
Anything below 70, you'd be considered hypoglycemic. Anything over 100, you'd be considered pre-diabetic. So we want to keep the range between 70 and 99 at all times. So if we get up in the morning, let's say I pull 80. First thing in the morning, fresh out of bed, I pull 80. That's a really good number. Okay, I go ahead and I eat my first meal that has carbohydrates in it. And I wait until probably 15 to 20 minutes before my next meal, and I prick myself again, and I read that number. If that number is in between 70 and 99, it means that my body has utilized the carbohydrates that I have taken in properly. It's dispelled it. It's gotten everything shuttled off into the muscles where they belong, and now my blood glucose levels are at a stable, nice, normal rate. If they're high, over 100, that means my body did not utilize those carbohydrates. It didn't push them where they're supposed to be at. My blood sugar level concentration is too high, and I'm in a pre-diabetic state. So it's a pretty easy thing to read, and you could do this in the off season. You can play around with it just to see if you're eating too many carbs or not enough carbs. Now, water can also become a factor in there. You want to make sure that you're getting a consistent amount of water throughout the day, that you're drinking the same relatively amount of water between meals. You're going to want to make sure that your sodium is relatively the same with every single meal, so that we don't have any extra variables that can throw off those blood sugar levels. But just to sit there and and test yourself 6 times a day. I mean, you could do this for 2 or 3 days and you could figure out exactly how many carbohydrates you need. I mean, if I'm sitting here and I put in 50 grams of carbohydrates and I'm still at 80, 2.5 hours later, then that's the right number. If I go up to 75 and all of a sudden I'm at 120, then I know that I've eaten too many and I need to take it back to 50 because 50 is optimal for me. So
Yes.
yeah, that's just I learned that from Justin Harris. He actually does that when he peaks his bodybuilders for competition. That's what he does during peak week, as he has them use a glucometer, and it works out really, really well.
There's no easier way to really dial it in.
No.
Than that. Those are hard numbers that are going to always give you the information you need.
So, real simple version. 30 minutes before you eat, use the glucometer. And if your blood sugar is between 70 and 100, the last meal's carbs were the right number.
Yes.
So if you're eating 50 6 times a day and you never crust 99, you're golden.
You're good.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
You're on the money.
You're on the money. So then it would be a 300 grams. And if you're somebody a little bit bigger that needs 75 to 100 grams of carbohydrates, I mean, some of those meals too, you may not have carbs in. You may have meals that are just protein veggie meals or protein veggie fat meals. Your blood sugar levels, should decrease at that point just slightly. But if you're in the 80, 85 range, they shouldn't go down that much. If they do, then you have another problem because you've gone hypoglycemic.
Yeah.
And you have another issue there.
Yes.
But they should stay in that stable, fasted, get back to their fasted value relatively quickly. If they're not, then, like I said, if as long as water and sodium are consistent between meals throughout the day, then that just means that you're taking in more carbohydrates than what you need.
Yep. Your
Does that
body
make
can
sense? Right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. That's simple.
It's very simple. It's it's a method that he's coined. He uses. He can get a lot more in depth and in detail on how he does it, but that's just the basics of it. That'd be a basic. For 3 days, let me just check to see what my blood sugar levels are, and let's figure out if I'm eating too many or too little carbohydrates. I mean, if you're sitting down towards 70 every meal, then you're probably not eating enough. Go ahead and increase that shit until you get up to the upper levels and you start to see it actually increase.
Yeah. Yeah, and for people that are, that are newer or have grown quite a bit, it's a good way to reevaluate where you need to be, and it's
especially somebody who's grown. Especially somebody who's grown. If you've put on 20 pounds of jack in the last year and you don't, and you'd want to continue to grow or continue to improve, you probably should be doing something similar to that and reevaluating where you're at as far as carbohydrate intake. And as long as, because protein, that's pretty simple. If I'm getting 1 gram to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight in the off season, I'm eating enough. There's no reason to go up to 1.5 unless you're during your contest prep and you want to make sure that you have enough so that you keep yourself in a positive nitrogen balance and that you have a steady flow of aminos. But these people that go 2.5 grams per pound of body weight, they don't realize that whatever excess protein that your body can't utilize for muscle building or muscle maintenance is just going to get converted into glucose anyway and be used as energy. So if you're eating 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight and you're consuming 600-700 grams of carbs, you may be, eating too much of one or the other or both in that instance. And this would be a good way and a good method to figure out exactly where you need to be at.
Yeah, the way I always saw it was if I drop my carbs lower than my protein, my body's going to start converting that protein into carbs.
Yes.
Almost always, no matter what you think your ratios are supposed to be, your percentage carbs needs to be higher than your percentage protein.
Yes.
A keto diet, for instance, as we've talked about until discussed of the subject, is 85% of your calories are from fat.
A true keto diet, yes.
10% are from protein and 5% are from carbs.
Yes. And
even then, 5 of that 10% of protein is converted. That's why you can't really grow on a keto diet. There's no protein.
Right.
It's, and the people are like, oh my God, 85%. It's like your 85 is like our 30.
Right.
If you're eating a 1,200 calorie diet and we're eating a 3,500 calorie diet, we're eating 3 times as much fat as you.
Right.
So even though we're like cutting, and you're cutting, and it's like it's about percentages. It's not about total value.
Right.
So it's funny that, because you're saying that 1 to 1.2 for protein, and are you saying that for cutting or for growing?
I'm saying for growing, because you're going to add fats, you're going to add carbohydrates to the mix and stuff to fill out what you need for calories. For an actual contest prep diet, I would say probably closer to 1.5. You want to make sure that you have enough, because you're going to start playing around with carbohydrates and going lower. So, like I said,
Okay.
whatever you don't utilize will get converted to glucose anyway.
So you're saying you do increase it for cutting. So
Yes.
I want to point out to people who don't know this, Keith is one of the pound for pound biggest guys per square inch I've ever seen, and he's strong as fuck. So if anybody knows how to grow muscle, it's Keith. And so that's why it's pretty important to listen to what he says. If he's saying all you need is 1.2 grams of protein per, pound body mass. Now, Keith, are you considering the 160-pound bodybuilder that's at 12% body fat, or are we talking about only people over 200 pounds?
I'm talking
20%.
I'm talking everybody, because that person, if they need calories, if they're a person who has a high metabolism where they just need calories, we can always utilize fats and utilize carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, obviously, within what they actually need, what their body actually is going to need for without going and overboard and killing their insulin sensitivity. But we can utilize fat too as well to put those calories in there, because chances are, if they're that small and they have that fast metabolism, that extra fat is not going to hurt them. It's going to help them, because it's going to slow their digestion down. It's going to slow their metabolism down, which is going to allow those amino acids and the protein to get digested slower, so that they have that steady stream of aminos. So when they train, they have all 20 essential aminos that they need for hypertrophy.
And then, let me back that up with a little bit of, sciencey shit. So, in the stomach, acids released eat away at the protein and break it down. If there's no fat present, certain hormones like CCK don't get released.
Yep.
And you need that for the pylorus, the back door of the stomach, to close. So if it doesn't close, the protein doesn't end up getting dissolved in this acid, because it just flows right into the intestines right away. Ipso facto, without the CCK and other hormones that are released from the presence of fat, the liver doesn't supply the gallbladder with bile acids. The gallbladder doesn't contract without the fat hormones to release those bile acids into, they believe it's called the ampulla of Vater, which is a small compartment in the head of the pancreas, where the pancreatic enzymes like chymotrypsin and trypsin and trypsinogen are secreted into the duodenum, the first part of the intestine, to then dissolve and cleave these amino acids that were broken up by the acid, breaks these very complicated structures like starships into just like girders. And then these enzymes come along and cleave these girders at specific breaks, like where alanine meets glutamine would be like a break for, let's say, papain. I'm just making that up, but I'm giving you an example. Whereas like bromelain might cleave where leucine meets isoleucine. And without having all those fat-based hormones, the process doesn't enzymatically digest these amino acids into di and tripeptides, so it doesn't get absorbed into the bloodstream. That's why a lot of really crappy over-the-counter supplement products just cause diarrhea, is because the protein powder doesn't get absorbed. It just goes in your mouth and out your butt, and then pulls a lot of water.
Yep.
Really expensive poop.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time too, if you're sitting there eating all this, if you're eating let's be honest, if you're eating chicken or you're eating turkey and you're eating steak, those things are going to take a long time to digest anyway. People sit there and they try to eat the faster digesting proteins, and I need a faster digesting protein. If you're eating chicken, if you're eating a lot of red meat, steak in your diet, it is taking a long fucking time for that to break down and absorb. You will have amino acids in you. There's no reason to be sitting here drinking protein powder, before you train, because you got to have it in your system. There's no reason. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's a lot of use necessarily for a whey isolate post-workout. Egg whites work just fucking fine. Eating some egg whites.
That's kind of like why I did away with it with like the battle mead. I designed it so that it triggers the growth response and preps your body for the next meal. That none of my athletes are going to be using any protein powder ever again, pretty much after like tomorrow, once we ship.
If you have,
it's just a coincidence that this was released the day of the
I mean, if you have, like I said, if you have a steak, if you ate a steak, how long do you think it takes to digest that steak fully in your stomach and get those get absorbed so those amino acids start shuttling themselves off through the bloodstream? I mean, it's
8 to 24 hours, depending on a number of different factors, like the fat content of the steak, how many vegetables were with it, how much food is already in your intestines, because sometimes it's like waiting in line. Like it's a brick wall of food.
I mean, if you're eating some big fucking meals. I mean, let's talk about a heavyweight or super heavyweight bodybuilder. I mean, if he's eating 8 to 10 ounces of steak, it's taking 24 hours for that to completely absorb. So
means if it's 100 grams of protein, you're slowly releasing 5 grams of protein every hour for 24 hours. It's not an straight line.
No.
It's more like up and down thing. At the 12-hour mark, it's probably releasing 10 grams or 15 grams. But for the most part, if you're eating a steak every 6 hours, you're
in positive nitrogen balance.
Every hour you're releasing 20 grams of protein of the highest caliber into your bloodstream. So you don't need shakes.
No. You don't. And the majority of that, is getting utilized for metabolism support. And some of it's going to get converted into glucose, and some of it is going to get converted, the amino acids are going to be used for protein synthesis. Now, most of that protein synthesis is going to happen, we're talking about natural bodybuilders here, most of that's going to happen in the anabolic window. It's going to happen in the 2 to 3 hours post-training. And even during training, once the switch gets turned on, especially if you're using the correct branched chain amino acids. But for a enhanced bodybuilder, somebody who's on gear, you're going to have more of an anabolic window where your window is going to be constant throughout the day. So you're going to be utilizing that more. And that's essentially why you're able to grow more by somebody who's using, testosterone and other gear as opposed to a natural bodybuilder. But still, if you are eating a steak, like you said, or chicken, every 3 hours, you are constantly feeding your body with aminos. There is no reason for the post-workout shakes. If you need something that's got to get in you quick, that you just want to have something in your stomach quick after you train, then just, eat some damn egg whites. That'll be in you faster than anything. And it'll get digested a lot quicker than the steak will.
It's like 1 hour, 15 minutes to 1 hour, depending on how much.
That's my first meal of the day is usually egg whites.
They're going to digest better. But if they're liquid, the reason why you can see through them is because they're not tightly packed, because you haven't unwound those protein tertiary structures. It's still in the star-shaped configuration. It's not sheets of metal and girders that can be broken down quickly.
Actually, just started doing this week. I to go with the insulin sensitivity thing. I actually pulled back, and here's a good way to reset your insulin sensitivity. Is actually pulled back. I pulled most of my carbohydrates out this week. We're pretty much protein, veggie, and some fats this week. Other than right around training, I need to have the carbohydrates, intra and post workout. But one, I've lost 15 pounds in about 6 days.
245 now?
Yeah, I'm down to 245. But what I've already noticed is better energy. I mean, a lot better energy, less lethargic. My training on the first couple days got better the first couple days right off the bat. Now it's just the same. But that's a good way for people if you think you are insulin resistant right now, pull the carbs out. Just give yourself carbohydrates intra-workout and post-workout. Pull those carbs back. Get them out. You can increase the fats to get your calories back up to where they need to be. About a week of that, and now start slowly adding carbohydrates back in, and watch yourself, harden up and transform. Your body will start getting the pumps back with the carbohydrates. You'll start utilizing them again. It doesn't take very long once you've become resistant if you do it correctly, as long as you're not resistant for forever. I mean, people that are slamming 800 grams of carbs for no reason, because they're 175 pounds and they think they need them to grow and they do it for a year straight, you're fucked. But for somebody who's been doing it for, 10, 12 weeks and they've gotten to the point now where they feel like they're always constantly tired and lethargic and they're not getting the pumps they used to get, pull back your carbs for a couple weeks. And then go ahead and start slowly introducing them back and see what happens.
You'll be amazed how good body responds.
Yeah. I mean, I usually do it for clients and stuff. We start their prep out coming off season and stuff the first couple of weeks. I'll just pull everything right back. We'll get all the burger weight out of them. You'll drop that 10 pounds of water and shit off of them. And then their body is resensitized and ready to go. So when we start carb cycling, we actually start having the responses that we want again.
Well, yeah, you're putting it in an optimal state all around.
Right.
That's beneficial prep wise and also in the off season to keep progress going forward.
Well, I think you should always in the off season. I don't think you should be consistently off season where you're eating like it's bulking the whole entire time. I mean, you should take bouts of 4 to 6 weeks where you lean out a little bit, pull some of the food back a little bit, start doing some cardio if you're not doing it already. And if you don't want to do the cardio, if you just start pulling nutrients back a little bit and start cleaning up the diet for 4 to 6 weeks, start lean out, go from 12 or 13% down under 10, go get back into single digits, after about 6 weeks, and then go ahead and start building. You'll build muscle a lot more efficiently once you're leaner than when you're fat. And people don't understand that.
Like we talked about earlier with the insulin sensitivity being based off your body fat percentage.
Yes.
The other part of that is the myostatin. If myostatin goes up after 6 to 8 weeks of growth, that's when you pull the plug on growing and go into cutting for about 4 to 6 weeks. And that brings your percentage back down from up to 15% down to like 8%. Mm-hmm. And then now you can start a new lean mass phase. And you just oscillate. You grow until you stop growing muscle and start only growing fat. Shave off the fat you put on since the beginning of your growth cycle. When you're back to where you were before, that's when you start another growth cycle.
Right.
Real simple. It's like and then it's a pre-cut phase. So if your show's in 16 weeks, spend 4 weeks and gently pull yourself down to where your body wants to be out of that bulked, bloated state. And it's chill and it's relaxed and you start introducing a little bit of healthy cardio, then you can start playing around with the numbers and everything and taking shit seriously the other 12 weeks or 6 weeks if that's all you need because you got a fast metabolism.
You figure at that point now you've got 8 weeks where you can actually grow into the show after that initial 4 weeks. So you take that first 4 weeks, you start pulling back a little bit, you get rid of the burger weight. You start working yourself into a contest prep phase, and then for the next 8 weeks, you should be able to grow into the show. You should get leaner and grow into the show, and then you've got 4 weeks to kind of dial it in. And just at this point now, you're not going to grow anymore because your calories aren't sufficient to do so. Now you're just basically going to put the finishing touches on it and cruise into the show.
Most people, they start ramping up their gear starting like 8 weeks out. And then they start slowly bringing down their food. So about the 4 weeks out phase is when the gear's hitting hard and their calories are still decent. Mm-hmm. So they're able to start crushing some serious numbers if they're still lifting heavy. And then, like you said, the last 2 weeks, you're basically on fumes. Yeah. So there's no way you can go on that. But the mountain of gear preserves, like whether you're on GH or Tren or Primo, those 3 drugs are ideal for hanging on to your muscle, even extremely low calorie state.
Yeah, especially trenbolone. I mean, we don't have to go doing 600-800 milligrams a week, but 300 a week. If you can't keep your muscle on, then you have serious diet and training issues.
Yeah, there's some serious problems at that point.
You're not eating enough, or you're starving yourself, or you're just going to the gym and doing your Jane Fonda workouts, where you go in there and as soon as you almost start to break a sweat, you leave. That's.
I don't know what that feels like.
I don't either.
What are you talking about?
It's really
every time I go in that gym, I'm like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. It's just easier when you're that tired because you go out like a bitch so much quicker.
Right.
But you're always in a pool of your own blood and piss and sweat on the floor.
Right.
It's not as glamorous in Instagram, though.
You guys ever get weird? I'm just a random, but you guys ever get like super weird Facebook friend requests?
all the time.
Oh my god! I just got like 4 of them just in the last 30 seconds, and
Oh, it's because
I'm pretty sure it's all porn. I'm pretty sure it's all porn, and or guys trying to sell me drugs. I'm pretty sure that's all of it.
My favorite is trannies.
And none of them have an American name. Not a one of them is American.
No, dude, I swear, there's some reason there's certain Asian gay dudes that are way more aggressive than the American ones. They're way more aggressive because I guess it's just the language barrier. They don't understand what no means fast enough. You know,
that's hilarious. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, no, I just random all of a sudden I got another one. I'm just like, what the fuck? Why do I keep getting these? I'm just watching them come across the top of my phone, the alerts, and I'm going, what the fuck is this? We have like one mutual friend, you know.
It's the one you clicked on. You clicked on one tranny bot, and then now all the tranny bots are coming.
Yeah,
for you.
I don't think I have any on there, to be honest with you. I think it's some friend of mine who got fucking fooled by them. That's my one fucking mutual friend,
yeah.
and now they're all reaching out to me because they're gonna come get you next. Don't worry, they'll be getting both of you guys here in a second.
Summer, whereas me and Scott Hughes are responsible for a million friend requests from other people getting blown up by the most ridiculous friend requests. It's like it says you're mutual friends with you. Like they contact me. Like, why is this bizarre woman coming at me so hard? It says you're your friend. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know. I was like, I just accepted everybody today. You know, it's like, oh, never do that again.
Jesus.
That's what you get for being nice.
Right.
Now I don't accept anybody, and there's 677 unaccepted requests.
You have 677. I just delete them. Don't you just delete them?
I want to wait and see how long it takes them to delete themselves.
Oh, okay. I just fucking delete them because I don't want it on my phone. It pisses me off every time I open it up and I see these fucking friend requests on there. It pisses me off. I'm like, I don't want to be your friend, and then I delete. And if they do it again, then I block them.
Wow, that's like harsh. It's like you just punch someone in the face for trying to give you a hug. Basically,
right.
It's cyber donkey
I just send them dick pics that Todd sends me.
Oh, that could be.
Did I trim this enough, Keith?
Yeah.
Did I trim this enough, Carrie? Is this the right lighting?
Dick
Should
pics.
I show my other side?
I think we can do a whole show on dick pics.
Like which girls respond positively to them?
No, just the fact that the guys that are constantly sending these fucking things and blowing inboxes up. I see some of the posts on Facebook and stuff and on Instagram where these girls are like, you know, calling these dudes out for the shit and everything else. And she said, if I just would show you guys the pictures, but I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm like, you know he did it.
Yep.
She accepted his friend request, and here comes the dick pic 20 seconds later. Bing! You got mail.
I don't know how you open with that. How do you open with that? Like, this shit just blows my mind. How do you work out like a pussy, and how do you open a conversation with a picture of your dick? Like, both of those things blow my mind. I don't understand how.
Keyboard warriors. You're really ballsy and tough behind a keyboard when nobody look at you.
Right.
I mean, like... Yeah.
And Photoshop your 2-inch dick to make it look like it's at least 4. So that helps.
4?
I don't even know what to say to that. I'd probably be serious suicide watch if I was in either of those camps. So I don't know if I'd be allowed to use a computer. I'd be like trying to hire assassins for myself.
Well, no, the benefit is if you were, then you could just watch micro penis porn. You feel good.
I don't know if that would entice me.
Oh, my God.
Well, I mean,
So this fucking conversation went south in a hurry.
I didn't know it was a micro penis porn. I've never heard of that. God, I just don't know anything cool. It's like all I know is this like the normal vanilla shit.
Yeah. So, guys, any other thoughts on the topic with insulin sensitivity and carbohydrates and fats and such? You guys got anything else you want to add to it?
I'm just extremely wary of ever adding fat. I usually just cut loose and break down and have like goldfish or something like that as my carb, because it's like 5 grams of fat for 20 grams of carb. Right. And I feel super guilty about that. So I don't know if I'd ever be able to just have a high fat day.
No.
Like, it's just like, I guess I've got like the mental block that a lot of people have about not eating after 6 p.m. Right. Like, I just can't wrap my brain around, I'm going to look better if I eat fat than if I don't eat fat.
I don't. I mean, I can honestly say this, even the off-season, the more fat I consume, the worse I look.
Okay. So at least we're agreeing on that.
Yeah,
okay,
if I have like right now, I'm on a little bit lower carbohydrates. Obviously, we're doing a low carb thing right now, resetting insulin sensitivity. So I did increase a little bit on the fats just to make sure that I kept the calories up a little bit higher, but I didn't go crazy on it. I mean, we're talking like going from normally where I'm below 20 grams of fat per day. Basically, I'm just eating what's in meat. I don't add any actual fat to anything at all. And I went up to 50. I went up to 50. Yeah. That's it. I mean, I went to 50. Anything more than this, I'll probably start having adverse look as far as my physique looks. I'll probably just start looking really soft and kind of like, I don't know, like run down looking is the best way to describe it. And I don't feel that good. And so if I go too high on the fats, I don't feel very good. And if I go way too fucking high on the carbs, I don't feel too good. So I've got to kind of, it's finding that happy medium. Yeah. I prefer to keep my fats a lot lower.
Okay.
That's me. Most people I feel like are like that. I think with women it's a little bit different. You have to have a little bit more fat for hormone production or else they go fucking crazy if they don't have any, and you can't give them too much because then they go crazy the other direction. So but for men, I think that we do better at, personally I think males do better with a lower fat intake, but that's just in my experience.
I agree that men can absorb carbs better.
Yes.
Because they typically have a lower body fat and more muscles.
Yep.
So they have more insulin sensitivity overall.
Yes.
Yeah. They have more, and then you add more storage for the carbs to go to.
Right.
And less of the bad storage for the carbs.
Right. And if you add steroids to the mix, now we're talking, it gets even better yet. It gets even better yet. Kerry, you got anything to add?
No, I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
This was an excellent session, guys.
Yeah. Next week, I already got figured out what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to talk training. We're going to talk about our styles of training and how they differ a little bit. We're going to have Tommy Styles on here because he's a DC trainer like myself. So I'm going to have another guy on here to talk about DC training because he does it a little bit differently than what I do. He's more conventional DC training, where I'm more of a hybrid Dorian Yates and Dante Trudell's DC training. I know, Todd, you're a big Dorian fan, and some of your stuff that you've got in there is more Dorian Yates style stuff on some of your weeks. So we can do training next week with Tommy Styles. We'll have him
excited to have him on the show. He's a fireman too. So
yeah.
He's a hero. So
well, he's getting ready for the Western Michigan as well. So I kind of wanted to talk to him about how his training differs with the DC and when he knows it's time to pull back a little bit and when he pushes through the DC, because with DC training you're going as heavy as you possibly can, trying to break PRs week after week after week on exercises. So I want to talk to him about how he does that, and might differ a little bit from the way I do things. So I think that'll be a good listen for everybody that's ever wanted to try DC training.
Yeah, and Keith helped me break through some major plateaus and get back to all-time records and break those records by coaching me through some DC. It only took like 3 weeks and just completely rebooted my whole body with it. So if someone hasn't tried it, definitely tune in next week and hear what Keith has to say and what Tommy has to say about DC, because even though it was invented in 2001 and the pros retired it in 2008 in favor of like FST7 and the high carb movement, it seems that if you're a low carber or a medium carber, the DC and the Dorian system might work better, where if you're a high carber, that's the only way to take advantage of high volume training. You can't do high volume on no carbs. We'll get to that though. That's the next episode, clearly. But yeah, totally excited.
Yeah, I think we all have a little bit different styles, so it'll be a really it'll be an interesting conversation.
You do a little more volume work, don't you, Kerry?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that'll be good. We can get a little bit.
Like Todd said, I mean, he pretty much hit the hammer on the head. when I go to prep, I go way heavier and I cut the load down. But in the off season, when I'm eating, I definitely go more high volume.
Right. All right, guys. I think this is a really, really good one. Hopefully people actually listen to this one and get something out of it. So we'll be back next week with Tommy Styles talking about training and our training styles for Kerry Cameron and Dr. Todd Lee. I'm Keith Fabbri saying, see you later. Keep grinding.